Why am I even surprised that you failed? I mean, seriously, I should fire you all!
Linnet, Alfreda, Nixie, and Elvinia sat before Cyrene's desk. None of the others looked at the commander, and Linnet averted her eyes as well. Meanwhile, Cyrene stood up from her chair, and she began circling both her desk and the line of 4 chairs they sat in.
I just want you all to know that my bosses were so unhappy when I gave them the report about your failure. I mean, seriously. Help me understand what happened. Did you all not plan enough? Did I not provide enough resources?
Cyrene got on the other side of Linnet, bent down, and practically whispered in her ear.
Or maybe it's just that some of you are weak and useless.
Hey, stop that. It wasn't her fault. We almost beat the Sparkle Guardians, but they got new powers.
Cyrene stopped and rounded her desk once more. She glared at Alfreda and gestured with both her hands.
We almost beat them, but blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter if they got new powers. You all should have been better prepared. I am so tired of all this incompetence, and I do not appreciate the backtalk. Here's the thing, ladies. You have one last opportunity to show some success, or someone is losing their job.
Tears welled up in Linnet's eyes, but she tried to blink them away.
We did our best. We couldn't have known that that was going to happen, and before they had a power surge, the Sparkle Dorks were on the verge of being beaten.
We did our best! You had additional support from R&D, especially that one.
Cyrene pointed directly at Linnet and snarled a little.
Support that I didn't give permission for. Elvinia is one of our top R&D arcanists, and she is not sanctioned for fieldwork.
Well,
I don't care what you were trying to do. You are not allowed to go on missions. I don't give a red cap's ass what you do when you're off, but when you're working, you're to be in that frickin' lab making me magical tech. Do it again and you'll be fired. As for you...
Once more, Cyrene pointed directly at Linnet.
Nixie and Alfreda have proven themselves to be worthwhile operatives, but you are still on probation. So far, you haven't lived up to expectations. That's why during this next mission, you're going to have to pull your own weight.
What do you mean? I mean, I always try and pull my weight. I do my best.
I read about some of the great successes that the other citadels are doing, and we're going to copy their ideas. However, because you all couldn't take out the magical boys like you were supposed to, we're going to have to improvise. There are going to be 2 major parts. The first major part is Nixie and Alfreda will split the city in half and secretly attach Anam Energy siphons to air conditioning units. The plan is to create a constant incoming source of Anam energy.
What about me?
Oh, you will have the most important part. You will be protecting an energy beacon in the center of the city, far away from where Nixie and Alfreda will be working. If I'm right, which I usually am, then the beacon should attract those stupid magical boys right to you.
The moisture in Linnet's mouth faded almost instantly, and a wild acid began throbbing in the pits of her stomach. Was it her imagination, or was her bottom lip quivering a little? It might have been a trick of the mind, but she couldn't rightly say. When she tried to speak, her voice refused to come out.
This is stupid! I'm the best choice for keeping the Sparkle Guardians busy. You're being too cruel to leave such a task to Linnet.
Actually, you can use your clay minions to help you distribute the Anam Energy attachments to air conditioning units. Besides, you're a more valuable asset to me than she is. If Linnet wants to stay with the company on this career track, she's going to need to step up and prove herself. Being an Anam Energy operations operative isn't for everyone, and she might not cut it. So, Linnet, are you wanting to go along with the mission, or do you want to quit right now?
Cyrene glared hard at Linnet while the others gave her side eyes. No one said anything, but they all waited for her response. Did she really want this? Her mother and sister spoke highly of the career, and so Linnet followed their direction. Bitter sourness flickered within her, and in a brief instant, 100 or so thoughts danced in her mind. She had fun with Elvinia, who was such a wonderful person. Alfreda and Nixie were also quite nice too. But on the other side of the coin, there were the Sparkle Guardians, and the dangers that came along with their constant interference. And then there was Cyrene.
I'll do my best to hold them off.
Wonderful! By the way, as we were talking, I put the other R&D Arcanist and the head of R&D on this mission. So all the necessary tech for the mission will be ready within the hour. Elvinia, you are not allowed to do anything for this mission. All the tech that Linnet is going to need will be provided.
A deep scowl floated on Elvinia's face, and it was the first time Linnet had seen such a dark expression from the Arcanist. Luckily, Elvinia turned her attention away from Cyrene, and the Citadel commander wasn't looking at her. Instead, she glanced toward her terminal. A slight chime danced on the air. Cyrene studied the surface of the terminal, and then she slowly turned a wicked smile over to Linnet.
Linnet, it appears the tech you're going to need is all ready. Go on and meet with the head of R&D. She will brief you on how to use it as well as where to go. The rest of you stay here. I want to brief you on where each of you is going to go. Elvinia, I want you to stay too and provide any magi-technical answers we might have. Go, Linnet.
Linnet slowly rose from her chair and she moved away from the office. She stopped in the doorway, and the only one who looked her way was Cyrene. Everyone else had their eyes averted to different directions. The glimmer in Cyrene's eyes was truly icy. Being up this high, the wind was frigid, and it was the perfect spot to be bait. Linnet hugged herself for a moment, and she gazed over the city lights. The sun had set about an hour ago, and it was quite dark, which would be perfect for Nixie and Alfreda. Would she be okay? When she walked up to the head of R&D, it was an awkward first meeting. The Nymphian's name was Roshi, and her demeanor regarding Linnet was less than inspiring. When Linnet introduced herself, Roshi's expression immediately fell into a pitiable exterior. What troubled Linnet the most were her eyes, for they were filled to the brim with a sort of reluctant wetness. Roshi had given her a large crystal beacon that was to collect residual Anam energy, while also generating enough of a signal that it would mask what the others were doing. Roshi also gave her a shield generator that would keep the Sparkle Guardians back. The only downside was that it was soundproof and airtight. At least the generator created an atmosphere within the bubble, because suffocating wouldn't be a pleasant way to go. Linnet sniffed a little as she stared at the deep space between the streetlights and the house lights. She wasn't looking at the ground, but peering into the depths of her own soul. While there were some nice things about this job, it wasn't what she expected. And while it may be the environment of this location rather than the job itself, Linnet had still drawn some unlucky cards. It wasn't all bad, as having Elvinia as a friend was more valuable than the tensions created by the other two major detractors for her job satisfaction. Why did the Sparkle Guardians have to be that powerful? It wasn't fair. And why did Cyrene have to be such a cruel and unsupportive boss? Something caught Linnet's attention, and it was a small speck of light to her right. Her blood ran cold. Were the Sparkle Guardians already here? She hadn't activated the beacon yet. A small bead of light whirled about on top of the roof. Linnet narrowed her eyes and studied the light carefully. It was a small little construct made to look like a lightning bug, and it carried something in its larger pincers.
Oh, what are you, little thing?
The little construct flew over to Linnet and hovered in front of her. It raised up an inch before falling and raising again. When Linnet held her hand out, the construct dropped what it held into her palm. The item was an earpiece. Linnet's eyes widened as she placed the little auditory artifact in her right ear.
Hello?
Hey, it's me. I'm really sorry about how this mission is going down. That's Cyrene. She's such a bitch.
Yeah, she really is. And if I'm being honest, I'm afraid I'm going to die.
Yeah, I know the situation looks bleak. Nixie and Alfreda send their support too. They can't help you, but I can.
But I thought you weren't allowed to help.
Oh, screw Cyrene. Yes, I can't physically be there, but I can be there for you emotionally, and I can provide surveillance. I'm afraid I can't do anything more flashy. I'm sorry.
It's fine. Having you here with me sort of, makes me feel better.
What kind of tech did they give you?
The tiny lightning bug construct whirled about.
That's a strange design for a shield generator. The field width is pretty large, but the conductors aren't as powerful as I would have expected.
Rochi said that the shield is airtight and soundproof.
What? Soundproof? That's terrible.
Terrible? What do you mean? Why is that bad?
Because none of the shield generators are supposed to come with soundproof energy barriers. This one was specifically designed and rigged for this mission to be soundproof. There's no reason to make it soundproof unless there's an enemy who has speech magic.
Or if someone has song magic.
If I was there, I could easily modify the shield. There's another thing that bothers me. The beacon doesn't appear to have an activation switch. Did Roshi give you a wand or button to press?
No, they just gave me these two things.
Okay, listen to me. You need to get out of there, now.
The crystal beacon illuminated instantly, and a brilliance engulfed Linnet and the top of the roof. She was only blinded for a moment, but when her vision came back into working order, it was just enough time to see the shield generator activate. A translucent yellow beam of energy rose up from the top of the generator and formed a bubble over most of the top of the roof. As soon as the barrier was fully closed, the little construct fell to the roof flooring. The end of the light in its rear shut off.
Elvinia, can you hear me?
Nothing. No static, no breathing, and no friendly voice.
Elvinia.
Linnet reached into a pocket and pulled out the teleporter crystal. Even after she fed magic into the artifact, it didn't illuminate. Instead, it was just a dull hunk of rock, similar to the pieces found in New Age stores, advertised as healing tools. She walked over to the side of the barrier, and she placed her hand on it. It didn't burn her, but it was solid. Linnet walked over to the shield generator, and a small but barely noticeable energy barrier had formed around it, as well as the energy stream flowing upward. The glaring light from the beacon was like a miniature sun, and Linnet turned around to see a long shadow cast from her body. Noxious energy danced up inside Linnet's chest and throat and she began to pace. There wasn't any real place to sit aside from the open floor space. She couldn't get out. Tears trailed down her cheeks, and then she took a couple of deep breaths. Why would Cyrene purposely want her to fail? They were on the same team. They worked for the same company, and so, naturally, they had their own best interests at heart, right? Well, there was nothing to do except wait. Sharp fingers made from manifested anxiety stabbed into her, but Linnet kept breathing in and out. In order for her to survive this, she had to act with speed and purpose. If the shield should fail, she would have to be ready to sing one of her more powerful spell songs, in hopes to keep the Sparkle Guardians busy long enough for her to get the call to retreat. Surely they would give her the signal to leave once the others had attached enough Anam Energy siphons, right? Linnet didn't want to answer that question, and she immediately thought of how she was going to survive. She replayed the information that Elvinia had provided, because if the shield failed, she would have to face all 3 of the powerful magical boys. Time seemed to drag on, but more than an hour passed before the Sparkle Guardians showed up. They landed on the edge of the roof, and they were apparently talking to her. They certainly stared at her and made elaborate and overly dramatic gestures. Curious, Linnet watched them. Each of the Sparkle Guardians took turns saying something, although the meaning was lost to her. Wow, each of them gave some kind of monologue. It was a good thing she didn't have to suffer through it. They gestured toward her more fiercely, but then they started casually talking to one another, while still gesturing to the shield with confusion and vexation. Despite her situation, Linnet smiled. It certainly took them long enough. Her delight faded a moment later when the golden Sparkle Guardian started throwing lightning bolts at a certain spot at the barrier. The blue one, Poseidon, started blasting pressurized water against it from another angle. Hades, the last Guardian, was on a third side, merely punching the barrier. His hands were engulfed in a sort of onyx fire. Being this close, with ample time to study the Sparkle Guardians, Linnet noticed several things. Firstly, their costumes were a little different. Zeus had the insignia of a golden hawk or some other kind of avian creature on the front of their outfit. Poseidon had a dangling horsehead necklace around his neck. Lastly, Hades had an interesting-looking belt buckle. When Linnet walked over and bent down to stare at Hades' lower body, it must have upset him, because he started punching more furiously. The other details that Linnet noticed was that the powers exhibited by the magical boys was much more impressive looking. Water streams were thicker, lightning flashes were brighter, with more frequent lightning bolts scattering across the surface of the barrier, and Hades never had glowing fists before. A sudden crack formed where Zeus tossed lightning, and a second formed where the water kept striking. Hades punched the barrier, and several small cracks formed where his knuckles hit. Linnet retreated to the center where the generator was. It got harder to take calming breaths, and her fingertips started to vibrate ever so slightly. So, this was it. Time for her to step up. But was she stepping up to prove herself? Or was she stepping up to die?
Oh no. They're breaking through.
Whenever the barrier activated, both the communications link and the surveillance signal had been immediately terminated. Thank goodness that Elvinia had set up several observation beetles in the area. She watched as Linnet paced within the bubble for over an hour, and she observed the lengthy speeches that the magical boys had directed toward her. To be honest, they were quite good, and worthy of usage in one of her upcoming fanfics, if not for the fact that her friend was being set up for failure. This was not how things were supposed to be. Poor Linnet. Elvinia couldn't do anything to assist her, otherwise it would mean losing her own job within the company. As the Sparkle Guardians started attacking the bubble, that sense of unease fell away. Based on the power output given off by the Sparkle Guardians, they would surely be able to break that barrier in a rapid amount of time. Elvinia gazed around her lab, hoping to find something that she could use. And then she noticed. While the other Arcanists were still in their domains, doing stuff, they were all watching her. They couldn't hear her, nor could they see what she was doing, but they could still see whether or not she was still in the R&D labs. No, she couldn't come to Linnet's rescue. Not only would she be physically stopped, but she would be delayed from doing anything that would actually matter. Cracks started to form on the outside of the barrier. It got harder to breathe, and prickling needles started to stab into her brain. She had to do something. Well, maybe not her. Elvinia switched what she was looking at via her observation beetles, and the screen split into two halves. Each of the halves showed a different scene, one overlooking Alfreda directing her soldiers, while the other showed only Nixie trying to climb over a chain-linked fence. Elvinia piloted the observation beetles closer to each of the Nymphians respectively. As the beetles got closer, both Nixie and Alfreda turned cautious eyes upon them.
Listen to me, both of you. Things are bad. Linnet is about to be assaulted.
That's terrible. But what can we do? She's so far away from where we are. I guess we could teleport.
I doubt that would work. As soon as we teleported back to the Citadel, and then try to teleport to Linnet, Cyrene would be notified. Then she would stop us. Didn't she get provided with a barrier? Why can't she just sing them into paralysis or something?
Ladies, Cyrene set her up. The barrier that she provided Linnet is soundproof until it's broken. She can't teleport out. Not only that beacon doesn't even collect Anam energy, as Cyrene said it was going to. It was simply designed to draw the Sparkle Guardians there. She's trying to sacrifice Linnet. If you two don't do something, she is going to die.
But what can we do?
I have an idea, and I can direct you how to modify one of the siphons you have. The barrier is about to break. Will you please help me save her?
More cracks crept up the outside of the barrier, and the shield generator began shaking violently. Linnet stood in the middle of the shielded rooftop and continuously changed her attention to each of the Sparkle Guardians. They each wore masks of utter contempt, and their eyes burned with desire for her blood. Would she have enough time to sing anything? Even if she started right now, it would be pointless until they heard it. Linnet couldn't help but tremble where she stood, and she held her arms close to her body. The shield generator shook harder, and the entire shield barrier started flickering. Flashes of yells, lightning cracks, and the sound of rushing water found their way into her ears. The flashes were brief, only when the barrier flickered for a half second. It wouldn't be enough time for her to do anything with her magic. The barrier was going to fail, and there she stood, powerless, helpless, and soon she was probably going to die. A loud whoosh-whomping noise broke out through the interior of the shield bubble as one of Hades' fists burst through the barrier. A moment later, the generator powered off. Together, they took steps closer to her, and she knew the moment she started singing, they would attack. They all stopped within 10 feet of her.
You've threatened this city for the last time. It's time for you to die.
A long moment of silence passed, and neither of the other two refuted the comment. Well, if she was going to die, she wouldn't simply let it happen. She crouched down ever so slightly, and when she did, Zeus pulled their javelin back a little more. Poseidon leveled his trident in front of him. Hades held out his hands, as if to block her attempts to flee.
Before we end you, tell us what your plans are with this.
Sparkle Guardian Hades pointed toward the large crystal beacon.
It isn't collecting spirit energy, so what is it? A weapon? One in which you're going to threaten the city?
Yes it is! It is a magical bomb, and it will devastate the city! You are going to be...
A lightning bolt crackled at Linnet's feet, which created a large hole before her. A moment later, the javelin reappeared back in Sparkle Guardian Zeus's hands.
No tricks! Nice try, but you're not going to trap us with that splendid and evil voice. Try again, and I'll plant the next bolt in your chest. So that big thing is a bomb?
Linnet opened her mouth to speak, but then intense light flickered on either side of her. All three of the Sparkle Guardians stopped, and they gazed at the two sources of the disturbance. On either side of the city, 2-mile-high columns of light rose up from the ground. The flashes happened for less than 10 seconds, but were easily observable, especially from this height. A voice echoed in Linnet's ear.
Hey, those lights are Nixie and Alfreda. Just remain calm and let whatever happens, happen. Stay safe and stay alive.
The Sparkle Guardians turned their attention back to Linnet.
What the hell was that, Nymphian?
Linnet licked her lips, kept in a poised position, and regarded the magical boys carefully. Sparkle Guardian Hades looked upon the crystal one more time.
This thing isn't a bomb. It's a distraction.
I think he's right. Ugh, I can't believe it. But did these freaking Nymphians attempt to sacrifice one of their own just to keep our attention here?
You sneaky little... Ugh. What is your plan?
I'm never going to tell you!
You stupid little bit!
There's no time. We have to stop whatever they're doing in those locations. We also have to make sure this giant thing doesn't actually serve some other purpose. You two go, and I'll stay here.
Screw you! You're not the team leader!
This is the Nymphian who almost killed me. I have a score to settle. Please.
Linnet continued to watch the Sparkle Guardians, and Elvinia wasn't saying anything, although the light on the little construct had started glowing again. None of the Sparkle Guardians had noticed it.
Whatever, do what you want, I'm heading east.
Sparkle Guardian Poseidon sprinted off in one of the directions.
I'll head out in the other direction. Be careful, Hades. This one can be very tricky.
Oh, don't I know it.
Sparkle Guardian Zeus ran off of the roof and dove out of sight. Linnet locked gazes with Sparkle Guardian Hades, who merely held up his hands in balled fists.
Are you ready for our rematch?
Are you really going to be okay?
I'll do my best!
Well, good.
In an instant, Sparkle Guardian Hades lunged for her, and Linnet threw herself to the side in a tuck and roll. His fist crunched into the ground where she once stood, yet his skin didn't break or tear against the stone. Just like before, a fiery onyx aura coated his fists. The black-clad Sparkle Guardian winced a little as he punched out again, closing the distance between she and him. Linnet ducked, and her voice cracked, yet she still sang out. Sparkle Guardian Hades stepped back, and he drew one of his fists back in a karate-style wind-up. Linnet retreated, all the while ensuring that she wouldn't fall through the massive hole somewhere behind her. Her voice got a little louder, and judging from the way his knees started to wobble, the Sparkle Guardian was almost under Linnet's sway. Just a few seconds longer.
Cerberus Punch!
Sparkle Guardian Hades punched his fist toward Linnet. A massive and ghostly image of a 3-headed Dotson appeared over him. It flopped toward Linnet, as one might expect from a wiener dog of any size. All 3 heads started barking intensely, and just for a moment, Linnet winced and ducked. Sparkle Guardian Hades' fist thundered over Linnet's head, where her chest would have been. Massive wind blasted over her, and it pressed her against the flat of the roof. Had she been slightly to either side, The strong gusts of the wind would have blown her off the roof entirely. And had she not ducked, well, it would have been bloody for sure. Sparkle Guardian Hades' eyes went wide with surprise. Yet he acted first. His other hand came around, and he slapped Linnet hard across the face. She fell upon the ground, and before she could push herself up, Sparkle Guardian Hades placed a knee on her chest. The man's massive hand wrapped around her throat, yet it didn't block her air passage. It merely pinned her into place.
Damn you, Nymphians. You're always trying to steal the energy from our souls. Are you happy with yourself? Are you happy that you're a monster? Is this what you wanted out of your life?
No! This isn't... I never wanted to hurt anyone!
Then why are you doing it? Don't you know what happens when you drain us of all of our soul energy? We die! Your people are literally trying to kill us!
I just fell into this career path, okay? My family does it, and so I just followed their path. I don't know what else to do! And you're wrong. Anam Energy comes back. Yes, we can drain it to kill, but none of the plans I've had been a part of have been designed to kill, I swear!
That is a lie! There are other Nymphians who do kill, and who want to slaughter us! We are not the only Sparkle Guardians. There are others who have reached out to us, others who have told us of their battles. Your people are monsters, and I am going to stop you!
Suddenly, a brilliant light zipped towards Sparkle Guardian Hades. The small construct Elvinia had sent earlier struck him in the cheek, just under the left eye. He screamed out and was knocked to the side of Linnet.
Linnet, roll into the hole if you can. It's the only way you can survive. Go! Ignacio and Alfreda are starting to retreat too.
Linnet twisted to the side as hard as she could, and she neared the hole in the roof. A massive hand grabbed her thigh, clutching the thick meat of her leg. Sparkle Guardian Hades inched over Linnet. An ugly bruise had already started to form. The Sparkle Guardian let go of her thigh, and he squished his palms over his ears. Linnet rolled harder and fell into the hole. She landed quite hard, and her body throbbed.
Teleport out of there!
Linnet reached into her pocket and pulled out the teleporter crystal. She fed magic into it as she looked up at Sparkle Guardian Hades, who had jumped down toward her. A fist engulfed in magic. White light engulfed her just as his flaming fist almost touched her nose.